nonprofits asking them to compete against each other for, funding. There's only so much resource to go around. But I think his example of the curb cut is that when it was, when the disability community pushed for.
I think we have time for like one more question, but also Kathy and Dave, if you wanted to respond.
I would just say shift power. So shifting power to people of color, to communities who are most adversely affected by our systemic inequity. So shifting power.
So your last example just made me think of, because I keep getting stung by how do you change people's minds, or how do you shift the conversation from kind of what to why, like a value conversation. And the curb cut is a really interesting one because the disability community, they had to literally throw their bodies, in front of legislators, people. They were, seen as people who should be kept in the shadows, should not be seen. They were upsetting. That was a huge movement that spent decades trying to gain rights. But it wasn't until they could really get in front of people and tell their story. I think the documentary Crip Camp, it's amazing. You should all watch it. I think it's called Crip Camp, but it's about the disability community, the movement, and that shifted, that documentary got in front of a lot of people, and it shifted values. And I'm still, yes to everything that you're saying, but how do you tell the story? How do you broaden the conversation to get people to start thinking about all the things that we, everyone, I think a majority of Americans want everyone, I would hope, I believe, most people want other people to lead productive, happy, safe lives. I hope that's true. And if you could tell that story of how do we allow everyone to try and lead a happy, safe, productive life, not just some people.
And I think it's back to Brian Stevenson's concept of getting proximate, right? And it's not about putting the burden on that community to make themselves visible to us, right? It's the burdens on us with the power and the privilege and the wealth and the whiteness to.
But how do you tell that story? Because we just spent the last 5 years with Black Lives Matter, a whole bunch of people saying, "Oh, you're making me feel bad. You're making me feel guilty. I don't like feeling that way." Ugh. And I think the school board thing that we're seeing happening all over the country, it's people being told, "I don't want you to make me feel bad. It makes me mad." Right? And we have to shift that conversation. I'm sorry if I'm getting also emotional, but how do you shift that conversation so people can stop hearing that?
Yeah. Well,
And start hearing, look, how do we care for each other?
Yeah. And it's also like, I'm, again, don't know how to say this well, so I'll just say it. I was really blessed to have a Black colleague and friend who, said to a group of women at Washington Women's Foundation, if you as white women are having a conversation about these things and you're feeling comfortable, you better believe I don't. And so that's, this whole don't make me feel bad. Well, if you're not feeling bad, I guarantee you there's someone else feeling bad in the room. And I don't know how we uplift our entire community. It's back to the acknowledgement, it's all the steps, but I mean, that's and a zero sum. There's only so much comfort to go around, which is nonsense, but that's where we are.
Right.
If I'm uncomfortable, then I need to hoard whatever that brings me that comfort back.
That's smart, that comfort is not some zero sum.
No.
Could ping pong back and forth with you all day, which is I once heard someone say, it's so hard to understand how to move educational outcomes for Black, Latino, and low-income kids in the classroom. Try being one. Try being a Black boy at a classroom in Seattle Public Schools. Right? Your only way that you're going to get that is hearing from the lived experiences from,
I think the same question came up, like, how do we change this? Like, you know, it's policy change, but policy change requires people actually making those changes, us advocating to our lawmakers to actually vote on those changes, and then upholding those in the courts, like the capital gains tax. And, you know, what ends it is like this narrative around, like, we're all worthy.
Right.
And I just, you know, it was Anne that said that, but it reminded me, you know, it's not that you are bad, that we are all, I think, we are all worthy. You can see it, you know, it really is like, as a national level, to remind ourselves. And you know, it reminds me, we did the last new grant committee that we did with SVP. David was on. One of the questions that came up as they were piloting or essentially testing different ways to decide who would get the grant. And Pamela Oates, who's on our board, you might see her on a postcard, facilitated one of the two groups. And the group that she facilitated, she would remind us, like, hey, everybody's worthy. Like, at the end of the day, we're not going to make a bad choice as a committee about who gets this grant. So we need to kind of be able to move on, because everybody's part of this ecosystem of change. But so, you know, with that said, at the end of the day, like, SVP has scarce resources, but we can open our ties, and hopefully other groups that come to us can get funded. But we have to remember in all this, no one is more or less worthy. It's just at this moment in time, we're making one decision. But I think that has stuck with me since Anne. I think it feels, particularly, you know, right now, it feels like a really, really heavy lift. But I think it's something that kind of gives me a beacon of hope in these times. I want to thank all of our panelists. This was amazing. I want to thank you, like, for sharing your journey. And then really, I love how you did the years, because, like, it really is a journey. Like, it's not like, I think, you know, we think like, oh, just got here, but like, oh my gosh, you were going back to like the 2000s, and like how this really has been like a journey in decades. And Shri, I just brought up, like, reminding us all, like, everybody, like, we're part of a much larger ecosystem of change. But also, like, we all need to, like, go dig into this equity, you know, equity-centered design and the targeted universalist design. And I love that. And that's something I'll take away. And Beth, thank you for sharing, like, everything that you did. I love that letter that like, you really, like, you all worked on and we signed, like, showed, like, it does, particularly, and I will say, like, when philanthropists use their voice, it makes a difference. Like, I think all of our voices make a difference, but we as philanthropists can use our voices even more, because that conservative city council member probably heard some of those foundations and thought, like, you know, that's gonna shift me a little bit. And that, you know, just the pebble. Thank you for that. I think that's something that really will stick with me. So thank you all. This was really like a special, intimate conversation. So big thank you. So I want to just plug that this is part of a series. In the next one, we're going to hear about specific policies that are going to be in the Washington State legislative session. So we talked about some city and county policies, but these are policies that will be going on. So we'll be hearing from Senator Noel Frame, as well as 3 former, they are current executive directors, but former grantees of SVP, who will be sharing kind of the work they're doing on policy in Olympia. That will be here on November 9th. Is that right? Yes. And the QR code is over there, and then we'll also have a virtual session where Terry's going to share how to actually do the skill set. So thank you all, and thank you to our speakers, and everyone have a great night. Thank you.